Again today, we want to look at a section of Scripture that is commonly known as the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. Again today, we're going to turn to Matthew chapter 5, but then also the first 5 verses of Matthew chapter 7. And we're going to turn there with this thought again in our hearts. Jesus, tell us another way that we are supposed to be distinctively different than the world around us as your followers. Not in a holier-than-thou way, but in a transformative influence kind of way. And so that being what we're looking to do again, here's another way Jesus calls us to be different. By being trustworthy. Talk about that a little bit in scouting, I think. To be trustworthy. In our world today, we don't see enough of that. And so here's another thing Jesus calls us to be different than the world around us because we are consistently people who others can fully trust. Now here's how we're going to get into this today. By thinking about what comes out of our mouths on a daily basis and how that, what we say, how that impacts in a really big way whether or not people trust us. So today we're going to take a look at two passages, again, both that deal with the issue of words. The first one can be found in Matthew chapter 5 if you have your Bibles and want to follow along. This will be up on the screens as well. Matthew 5, verses 33 through 37. And then we're going to turn to chapter 7 and look at the first 5 verses of that chapter in Matthew. Again, how do the words of our mouth, what we say, impact our trustworthiness, either strengthening it or weakening it based on what we say? Let's dive into this today. First, Matthew 5, verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. But I tell you, this is Jesus, but I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. And you're thinking, Jesus, why would I ever want to make any of my hairs white, right? The other would be good, but I digress. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Simply let your yes be yes, and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. And now we jump over to chapter 7, and we read the first 5 verses of chapter 7. Here's verse 1. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? What great imagery. How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. May God bless these amazing words to us this day. Now, with these two passages before us, I want us to take a look at a couple of foundational thoughts that we find here, things that teach us in a general way about the power of words. And so here's a first foundational thought that springs out of both of these passages. First, in a general sense, Jesus reminds us here of this, that words are never, ever neutral, so to speak. Instead, words always have an impact, and some words, quite frankly, have a profound impact. Now, I know that's a bit of a simple thought today to begin with. Words matter. So let's do this in order to go deeper. I want you to think about whose life is impacted by the words that you speak. For example, first off, our words often have a great impact in the lives of others. And that may have come to mind immediately for you. The writer of Proverbs in chapter 12 offers this lesson. Reckless words pierce like a sword. Think of that language. Reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Now, one of the things that the writer of Proverbs is reminding us here is that very seldom do words just kind of glance off our exterior. Instead, think of the words used here, pierce like a sword. Instead, the writer here, in telling us, most words don't just glance off of us. He's saying instead, more often than not, words really penetrate deep into our hearts. The result of that, on the one hand, might be, if a kind word is spoken to us, that's a positive for us, but more often than not, where negative words are offered, that pierces our hearts in negative ways. Part of when I was talking earlier to our scouts and praying over you, saying, we're not preparing you at this point to be great men someday. We're preparing you so that tomorrow when you go to school, you'll understand the power of words, the good you can bring, the ways you can battle the evil you see just in people teasing one another. Seems like a simple thing, but here the writer, first off reminds us, man, words don't glance off. They pierce the heart. They can pierce in a positive way, they can pierce in a negative way. Again, knowing that words seldom leave us unchanged, do this for me if you would. Think about some words that were offered to you many years ago, and yet they still stick with you today. No doubt some of you are thinking of things that were inspirational. They blessed you greatly, and you'll never forget them. But others of you can think of words that really hurt you at the time, and you realize, gosh, that's still a raw place in my heart, in my soul. Either way, the message is clear. The words we speak often do have a great impact in the lives of others. Now, in that same chapter, though, the writer of Proverbs also reminds us of something else. That not only do our words have a profound impact on others, think of this. I don't think we often think of it this way. Our words also have a profound impact on us. Here's how he speaks to that in verse 14. The writer of Proverbs writes, "From the fruit of his lips a man is filled with good things, as surely as the work of his hands rewards him." So he's saying, just like the work that you do, whatever that might be, just as that work produces something tangible in your life, he's saying in the same way when you speak, by the words that you use, that also produces something tangible, something that colors your spirit, that shapes your character, meaning something like kind and loving words coming forth from you. That provides and produces one thing in your heart. Bitter, angry words produce something quite different. Or maybe another way to say that is to say this. See if this resonates with you. I like this imagery. Often, we become what we say. Or often, we begin to look like the words that we use. Perhaps that you've had this experience. You hear someone begin to speak about someone else, spouse, kids, business partner, boss, and not just something negative. It can be something very, very positive. But have you had an experience where someone begins to speak about someone in their life, and as they begin to do that, you find that their words reveal more about them than they do about the one of whom they speak? I think that's an example of beginning to look like the words we use. Believe me as I offer these words. So convicting today. We all struggle with this. I do, certainly. So a first general thought that Jesus gives us here today is this: words matter because they often do have a profound impact on others, but also on who we are. But then here's the second foundational truth that we find here as well today. Guys, the words we use in life are also critically important because how we speak in this life will either build trust or erode it. How we speak in this life will either, again, in relationship, make us more trustworthy or less trustworthy. Aesop, the ancient storyteller, told this fable. Once upon a time, a donkey found a lion's skin. He tried it on, strutted around, and frightened many animals. Soon a fox came along, and the donkey tried to scare him too. But the fox, hearing the donkey's voice, said, "If you want to terrify me, you'll have to disguise your bray." Aesop's message: clothes may disguise a fool, but his words will give him away. Truth is, one of the ways we build trust is when our words match who we really are. Or one of the ways that we build trust is when we're not trying to hide behind a facade, only to have our words give us away. Now again, pretty simple thought. So in order to go deeper into this, I want us to break it down into two key parts. The first being this. Guys, first, if we want to build trust in our relationships, then we've got to make sure that we consistently mean what we say. When we say something, we've got to make sure we mean what we say. Here again, these words from Matthew 5, starting with verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, "Do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. But I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Simply let your yes be yes." Remember these words? "And your no be no." Anything beyond that is irrelevant, comes from the evil one. Now, what Jesus is talking about here with the words "do not swear," he's talking about a rabbinical teaching of his day. When he offers these words here, he's actually responding to this ancient teaching that says that some of our promises are more important than others, that some of our oaths carry more weight than others. For example, we make a promise in the temple, it's going to carry more weight than if we make one to our wife. We all know that's not true, right? And so here is Jesus saying, I know you've heard it said that one oath means more than another. He says, please don't ever think that way, ever again, because every single promise you make has an impact upon your trustworthiness. And so first here Jesus is saying, if we want our words to build trust, then we need to always mean what we say. But then he makes this very clear here as well, that also if we want our words to build trust, not erode it, we've also got to be willing to do this. We've got to be willing to speak the truth in love. Here's a great way to pull these two thoughts together. Guys, if we want to use our words to build trust, first we need to be the truth with God's help, meaning our words clearly match our intent, our words clearly match our actions. First we need to be the truth, and then and only then can we begin to speak the truth. But even more importantly, even when we get to the point of saying, yep, I'm ready to begin to speak the truth, even then we've got to make sure we do it in a certain way, right? A way that is often distinctively different than how words are spoken in the world around us. We need to do it in a specific way, in love. Here's what Jesus says in verse 7:1, do not judge or you too will be judged. And then he offers this to us in verse 3. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Now notice here what it doesn't say, because I think we often miss this, okay? It doesn't say, don't worry about the speck in your brother's eye. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that's judgmental if you notice the speck in your brother's eye. It's judgmental if you want to do something about that. It doesn't say that, does it? It doesn't say don't worry about your brother or sister. It doesn't say don't ever speak the truth to them. Instead, it simply says when you do speak the truth, you got to do it in a certain way. You got to do it in love. And here are some things that can help us kind of test whether or not that is true. All of us like to say, boy, you know, when I speak the truth to someone, as a Christian, I try to do it in a loving manner. Well, test it out. Here are a couple things that can help you. For example, consider condescension for a moment. If when you begin to speak the truth, feeling led to do that, if there is the slightest bit of condescension in your voice, then you are not caught up in what Jesus is teaching here. Truth is, let's just admit it. It is so easy for us to feel better than someone else if we see a flaw in their life before we've owned up to the flaws in us. Fair enough? Very easy for us to drift into this condescension if we only look at the flaws in their life and we don't acknowledge the ones in our own. So first ask yourself, when you think you are speaking the truth in love, is there great humility in your voice? Is there great self-understanding in your heart, realizing you are dealing with planks even as you speak to a brother or sister about a speck? Again, it isn't about not speaking to them at all. You can be a help to them. But are you doing it in a humble way that acknowledges your own struggles? But then here's another way to double check this. By thinking about, you got to laugh when I say this, by thinking about how well we are listening to the other person when we feel led to share with them. What's the assumption we make when we read the words, we need to speak the truth in love? The assumption is, all we're going to do is talk. Without an equal measure of listening in the midst of our trying to speak the truth in love, without an equal measure of listening, how can we ever know what's behind the speck in our neighbor's eye? Without an equal measure of listening, how can we ever begin to understand what the other person is going through so that we might be there for them, so that we might be able to care for them? I mean, that's why we're speaking the truth in love in the first place, right? Let me share this story in closing. Uncle Oscar was apprehensive about his first airplane ride. His friends, eager to hear how it went, asked if he enjoyed the flight. Well, commented Uncle Oscar, wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. But I'll tell you this, I never did put all my weight down. Guys, another way we are to be different than the world around us is in how we strive to be trustworthy, to mean what we say, to speak the truth in love, to bring grace to our conversations, especially those that are tough. And I think a great way to think of what it means to do that, to be trustworthy, great way to think about this is to ask ourselves periodically, when people enter into relationship with us, can they, with confidence, put their whole weight down upon our trustworthiness, so to speak? The weight of their soul, the weight of their vulnerability, the weight of their pain, the weight of their struggle, the weight of their very lives. Can they, with confidence, when they enter into relationship with us, put their whole weight down upon our trustworthiness? Because again, that's something we are called to, and it's something so many people in our world desperately need today. Someone they can fully trust. Well, I know some of you are here for just the first time, but it has been a joy to journey through this series with you. Some have been able to make it every week, some of the weeks, and I know some of you are here for the first time. But I do hope when we think about this distinctive difference we are to bring as followers of Jesus to our world, not a holier than thou kind of thing, but simply a transformative influence kind of thing. I pray that all of us who are here today, from oldest to youngest, might just commit again. Lord, make me different than the culture around me, that I might be the influence you would have me be. Let's pray.